I realize that I have not made any draft content up to this point, and we are over a week into April. But listen, man, it's been a crazy couple months. I'm not going to bore you with that story. That's not why you're here. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk about my 12 favorite running backs in this class. You're here to listen to me talk about those running backs. That's why you clicked on this video. I'm really excited to get into it. I hope you're excited for it. This is a great running back class. I ended up watching 25, and if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll see my grades for all 25 I watched. It's just a really, really fun and exciting class. All 12 that we'll be talking about today are graded at least a third rounder. So, a lot of like starting caliber running backs or guys that are going to be legit contributors within the top 12. It's a really deep class, a lot of talent. There's some guys that didn't make this list that are still really good and I think are going to be really exciting. So you'll definitely want to stick around till the end, like I said, to see who those running backs are. But enough dilly-dallying. I said my piece. Let's go ahead and dive into my top 12 running backs in the 2025 NFL Draft. We have Brashard Smith out of SMU by way of Miami. First-year running back, played wide receiver at Miami, transferred over to SMU, became a tailback, and my goodness, is his tape exciting. The biggest thing with him, the receiving game. That is going to be where he makes his money, where he's going to find his most value, because he is a true wide receiver. He's a wide receiver in the backfield. Natural hands, good hands catcher. He can pluck the ball away from his frame. He has a pretty solid catch radius. His arms are over 30 inches long. As a route runner, he's silky smooth. He can use head fakes. He's going to be a nightmare for linebackers at the next level, probably going to give safeties a run for their money. And he'll be able to, make some plays against corners as well. Someone that doesn't have to align solely in the backfield. You can put him in the slot. You can put him out wide. You can do different things with him because of his route running prowess. Like I said, the hands are really good too. The other big thing is the athleticism. 4.39 speed absolutely shows up on tape. Very, very fast. He's explosive, has pretty good acceleration. He can cut on a dime. His footwork in the backfield, his lateral agility is really nice. Which that actually brings me to like some of the traits on here. Some of them might seem similar, so I'm going to go ahead and clear the air now so you know going forward with this video. Acceleration and burst, the difference between those two things in my eyes, or at least for the purposes of this video, acceleration is how quickly you get up to your top speed, so like your 0 to 60. Whereas burst is how quickly you can attack a lane, right? Because as a runner, you take that handoff. You gotta, there's times where you gotta like bounce around a little bit, keep your feet churning, keep your eyes active, find a lane, you find it, you explode through it. So with Brashard Smith, he gets up to his top speed pretty quickly. But with his burst, there is a little bit of almost hesitation, just because he is new to this position. So I think there's plenty of reasons to go, or plenty of logic and reasoning to go, okay, this guy's 21, he's played the position for 1 year. He's already solid in that regard. Why can't he grow? So I think he can grow. I think he can get better at that. And the same will go for his vision, obviously, in terms of getting better. It's fine right now. It's passable, but he does get like a little bounce happy trying to bounce it to the outside sometimes. So you got to kind of work with that. I think that is something you can also work out of him. His vision behind the line was very, very impressive. For a guy who had only been playing the position for a year or was in the midst of playing it in his first year. And then agility and shiftiness, those two things, although Brashard Smith is graded the same, are different as well. Agility is lateral agility, specifically for a running back, switching lanes, your footwork, things like that. Brashard Smith has very, very nice footwork. He switches lanes pretty well. And then shiftiness is like wiggle. Can you make guys miss an open space? Can you juke? Things like that. Also very, very shifty in that regard. And then the other one that might get get some people tripped up is vision and open field vision. Vision is your vision behind the line. Can you locate lanes? Can you wait for blocks to set up? Can you, see something at the second level and help like set your blockers up? That type of thing. Open field vision is once you hit the second, third level, once you're out in almost open space, can you take good angles to manipulate DBs to take bad angles? Can you set your blockers up in open space? Like when a receiver gets downfield and is picking up a corner or a safety or a fullback or a tight end, can you set those guys up? That's the difference there. But with Brashard Smith, like I said, the receiving and the athleticism are going to be the two big selling points. Those are the two very, very exciting things. Also has pretty good contact balance for somebody that weighs under 200 pounds. You know, you're not going to mistake him for like an Ashton Genty, who has the best contact balance in this class, spoiler alert. But, you know, he can hold his own. Not someone that just falls over at first contact or anything. And as for strength, nothing too crazy, but he can put a little bit of pop behind his pads. He can get behind his pads and you know, run over a corner, run over a safety. But just a very, very exciting, dynamic player offensively. And then also I mentioned the return ability. I think I mentioned it. If I didn't, he was a hell of a return specialist at Miami, which is very, very exciting, especially with the new kickoff rules. You know, we're going to see more and more of those. A guy like Brashard Smith, who is a running back with good field vision or open field vision, who's shifty and explosive. This is somebody that honestly might get drafted a little bit higher than some people will expect because of that special teams ability. I don't have it listed here because it's not really going to apply to everybody, but with Brashard Smith, it is absolutely something you need to keep in mind. And then you take a look at some of the, you know, weaknesses to his game. Pass blocking is not a strength of his. Obviously, transitioning from wide receiver wasn't something he was asked to do before this past year. And he just honestly doesn't have the strength to hold up against like a linebacker one-on-one or anything like that. He'll work his tail off, and he can contribute on like chip blocks, but he's not somebody you want being the last line of defense for your quarterback. And then also his strength, like I said, just not exactly there. Weighs 194 pounds. He could bulk up a little bit, but that might sacrifice some of the speed. And with the way he plays, I don't think that's necessarily worth it. And then the power profile, also just not great because he's not the strongest guy in the world. The biggest concern, though, is the ball security. Fumbles were a legit issue those last 2 years, especially his last year at Miami and then his 1 year at SMU. He has to protect the football. That's something I think can improve. And honestly plays into his comp, which is Antonio Gibson. If you remember him with Washington, ball security was a legit issue. But he was somebody else who was athletic, really good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think Smith already has a better baseline than Gibson did at or in Washington as a runner. And obviously he has room to grow. Not a lot of tread on the tires, only 21. So just a very exciting player, easily worth a look on day 2. If not to be like, you know, a legit part of your offense, at least on day 3, if he starts to fall, you should look at this guy and go, that's our return specialist. But I do think he has all the tools to be a number 2 running back, you know, scat back, someone you can line up a bunch of different places. I know, for example, he met with my Chicago Bears. The idea of him in a Ben Johnson offense, that is exhilarating. Ben Johnson would have a field day with a guy like this. But yeah, just a really exciting player. And that's my RB12. Moving on now to my RB11. At RB11, I have Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers, the 23-year-old senior. He's somebody that I view as a head of committee. That's what HOC means. So basically someone who, you know, can be the number 1 guy in a room, but needs some supplementary backs to kind of make up for some of his weaknesses. And just to get that out of the way with Monangai, not a fast player, not someone who's going to offer a whole lot in the receiving game, just based off of what he did in college. Really was not asked to run routes, really did not have a ton of opportunities to catch the football. When he did have opportunities, there were some drops that were really unfortunate. But Monangai, I think, can be like the guy who you list as number 1 on your depth chart, you call your starter. He just needs some guys to kind of supplement some of his weaknesses, like I said. Now, one of the reasons I like Monangai so much is because of my comp for him. And normally I'm not somebody who gets super married to comps, but I think this is so perfect. He is literally Bucky Irving, with one major difference, which is that he's a little bit stronger. But in terms of being a small, slow running back who just makes dudes miss and is able to win, you know, behind the line because of vision and, you know, foot agility and things like that, he is very, very similar to Bucky Irving. And last year, I had like this internal struggle with Bucky Irving because as much as I liked him, as much as I was a fan of his game, I didn't know how the hell to evaluate him because we're looking at this tiny running back who isn't fast. And my brain could not comprehend that working at the NFL level. And I wasn't alone in that. There were a lot of people that weren't very big Bucky Irving fans because of that, you know, looking at him as like I guess he's a scat back, but that he doesn't have the profile for that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. It worked for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. Obviously, Bucky Irving was, at least for their rookie seasons, the best running back in the class. And I think he's only going to continue to do that, get better. Also, another older prospect. I think Bucky was 23, 24 coming out. So just a lot in common with Manungai in that respect. And the reason, like I said, the reason I like Manungai so much is because I almost feel like I'm righting my wrongs. I almost feel like I'm going, okay, I'm not letting this happen again. I'm not letting myself talk myself out of a fun running back that just works. And that's what Manungai is. So the speed and stuff, like I said, isn't there. But the power is exciting. I mean, this dude is built like a little bowling ball. 5'8", 211, and just runs through dudes. Great contact balance, great leg drive. He just works his tail off as a runner. He's so fun to watch in like short yardage situations. He can also hold up in pass pro because of that. Now, because he's a little bit shorter, you know, there are times where he's going to get beat just because he doesn't have the arm length to kind of get in somebody's pads, but he does his thing. The footwork is great in the backfield. Like I said, good lateral agility, really shifty in open field, can make guys miss, really good vision behind the line. You know, he sees holes really, really well, lets the play develop. Once he gets in the open field, he's a little more reactionary than he is, you know, this is the way I like to picture it. This is my brain. When a running back gets into open field, it's kind of like those movies or those shows where they're trying to show someone is really smart, but they don't know how to do it without literally showing the audience. So something will be going on and you'll see them doing like mathematical equations in the empty space in front of them that no one else can see, but that's like what they're seeing in their mind. In my eyes, that's how open field vision works. I know that's probably not the case, but that's how I like to envision it when I'm trying to explain it. So now that you have that information, Manungai, he just doesn't do that. He just looks at it and is like, okay, I'm running. There's a guy coming from my left. Let me juke him. There's a guy coming in front of me. Let me hit a spin. Oh, there's a guy here. Let me backstep, like that type of thing. Like he's a lot more reactionary than he is like, okay, so that blocker's running downfield. That safety's heading that same direction. If I cut to the left, I can get that safety to bite. That tight end will pick him up. And then if I'm running behind my fullback here, that linebacker's trying to cut. If I step a little bit, that linebacker will he'll hesitate, and then my fullback can get up and smash him in the mouth. Like he just doesn't play like that. And that's okay. You know, not everyone needs to be like that, because Manungai, he just makes the guys miss. You know, and that works. Bucky Irving is another guy that is very similar in that regard. I think he's a little bit better, Bucky Irving, but Manungai, he does his thing. But yeah, I love Manungai. Very, very exciting player. Someone that I think is going to be a steal. I have a third round grade on him. I don't think he'll go on day 2. As unfortunate as that is, I think he might slip a little bit, and he'll end up exactly like Bucky Irving. He'll go in like the 5th round. Some team will get a steal. He'll be their RB2 to start the season, and then eventually start to take over a little bit and just be really, really exciting. Just a fun bowling ball player. I can't get enough of calling him a bowling ball, because it's literally what he is. He just bowls through defenses. That 4.6 speed is going to turn a lot of people off. It doesn't bother me a whole lot. My running back doesn't need to be fast. He just needs to get yards. And there's one thing Manungai knows how to do. He knows how to get yards, and he knows how to do it consistently. All right, moving on to my RB10 with the same grade as Manungai, we have Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. And this will probably be the first big, surprise on this list. I do not like Travion Henderson all that much. I think it's hard to deny what he brings. It's just some of his weaknesses really clash with what I value in a running back. And just to address the elephant in the room, it's his vision. I think above all else, vision is the most important thing for a running back, because if you can't see the hole, how are you going to get yards, right? You can be as fast as you want. You can be as shifty as you want. If you can't hit that hole, it doesn't matter. And I think a prime example of that is my comp for him, DeAndre Swift. I have gained a little bit of respect for DeAndre Swift this season as a Bears fan, because he kind of worked a little bit of power into his game and was trying to run through guys. It didn't always work, but he tried. But if you know anything about me, if you see my old tweets, heard me talk on my podcast or anything like that, you know DeAndre Swift is not a back I'm a fan of, because Moses could part the Red Sea in front of him and he'd bounce it to the outside. That's kind of what's going on with TreVeyon Henderson. His vision is just not good. He does have some flashes, but it's really inconsistent at best. And he'll run himself into traffic. He'll bounce runs to the outside when he doesn't need to. Or he'll end up getting really cute behind the line and then just get dropped before he can even try to bounce the ball outside. So there's a lot of issues with the vision. He's also pretty stiff. He doesn't have that like true shiftiness. He's not somebody that like in a phone booth is going to make guys miss. It's a little bit better when he gets out in open space because he has more room to operate, but still not great. The power profile also is pretty limited, so he's not somebody that's going to push the pile. And he also has some foot injury history, missed time in 2022 and 2023. Had a clean bill of health in 2024, but not ideal, I guess is the best way to put it. Now, to not be a Debbie Downer, TreVeyon Henderson, he's fast, man. I mean, he's got the speed. Ran a 4.43 at the combine. That shows up on tape, absolutely. He can run through arm tackles. He has good contact balance. Really good footwork behind the line. That lateral agility is nice. He can cut on a dime a little bit. And then as much as I hate the way he hits the hole, or let me rephrase that, as much as I hate how long it takes him to find the hole to hit, when he finds it, he hits it quick. Like, he's got good burst. So to his credit, if he can find a hole, he's going to hit it and probably break a long run. It's just you can't rely on that to be consistent. He's also pretty good out of the backfield. He's good hands. There's some potential as a route runner there. Didn't get asked to run a diverse tree or anything at Ohio State, but there are some moments where you think, okay, I can get with it. He's also really good as a pass blocker. I really liked his pass blocking. So Henderson, there's a world where his vision improves. I've seen some people kind of liken him to James Cook, who had that problem coming out of college. His vision was bad. Now he's legit, RB1 with good vision. Henderson could improve, and if he improves, then he will have a great career in the NFL. If not, I still think there's a world where he's a good RB2, hence the role there. I think he can be a good complement, the lightning to someone's thunder, so to speak. Just a big player you rely on for outside runs, out of the backfield as a pass catcher, things like that. I don't think he's a bad running back by any means. There's a reason he's in my top 10 in a loaded running back class. I don't like him as much as a lot of people. I'm not as high on him. And I just don't think he's ever going to be like a true superstar. I think he'll have a role and he'll play it well, but I don't think he'll be a superstar. And that's okay. Not everybody needs to be a superstar. Sometimes you got to be comfortable being an electric RB2. And I think TreVeyon Henderson can absolutely be that at the next level. Moving on now to number 9, we have DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. And I'm going to be honest, I don't have a whole lot to say about Giddens, not because of, anything derogatory. He's just a pretty straightforward player. He is your stereotypical jack of all trades, master of none type running back. He can do pretty much a little bit of everything, but nothing other than maybe his vision is like a standout trait. I would say his vision is definitely impressive. He sees the field very well. Not perfect. He doesn't have the best vision in the class or anything like that, but he does see the field very, very well. There are some lapses here and there, but I think that more comes from the fact that he has been playing football only since his sophomore year of high school. Now, I can't speak for every running back in this class, but out of the 25 I watched, he is the most new to football. Not to the position, that obviously is Brashard Smith, but out of, just playing football, he is the greenest prospect that we will talk about today at the very least. And so that is exciting that his vision is that good that quickly. The fact that he has grown and developed as this really just consistent, solid running back that quickly should be a major green flag. And he's only 21. He still has room to grow. So his vision could get even better. he could grow as a route runner, which is something I think he definitely needs to do a little bit of. I think he's fine now, but I think there is some untapped potential there. As a pass blocker, he has the strength, but he could get better with his technique, and that is something that could be exciting. Um, there's just room to grow. Like, he's just good all around. Athletically, he's nothing crazy. He ran a 4.43, same as Travion Henderson, but I don't think that shows up on tape as much. So he is a little bit lower in terms of speed. Changes directions pretty well. Doesn't like cut on a dime or anything like that, but he does pretty well. Also very agile, very good footwork behind the line of scrimmage. He switches lanes very well. Once he finds those lanes, he hits them quickly. He's strong. He has a good power profile. He will run through dudes. Has really good contact balance. Not somebody that's going to be easy to bring down. He has a little bit of wiggle to him. Doesn't drop the football. Catches the ball pretty well out of the backfield. Like I said, just kind of has a little bit of everything. Also, I guess with his weaknesses, he is a little upright as a runner. You'd like to see him get behind his pads a little bit more. But, again, still being relatively new to the position, or at least relatively new to the sport, you figure that's something that can get better over time. For a comp, he reminds me a lot of Chuba Hubbard, a very similar player. I think Hubbard's a little bit stronger, and Giddens could get a little bit stronger, at least play a little stronger if he got behind his pads a little bit more consistently. I think that power's there. It just needs a little push to get tapped into. But, Hubbard, he's a very respectable running back, just got paid, was the RB2 to start out behind Christian McCaffrey. They ended up getting rid of him, and Hubbard has done wonders as their true RB1. So I know on the screen it says his role is RB2. On my actual draft sheet, I just couldn't fit it on the page, so I'm just going to tell you now. I have him listed as an RB2 with feature back upside. I think he could be a number one running back for you here in 2 or so years, about halfway through his rookie contract, if even that. That way you'll have a feature back once he gets to that second contract, and you'll be able to adjust from there, see if you want to pay him or whatever. But obviously that's way in the future. The point is right now Giddens can step in, be productive as like a change of pace, goal line back type with his strength and his frame. And then I think over time can eventually take over as a true number one somewhere. I love Giddens. I am a sucker for these kind of like jack of all trade type running backs. He's just fun. I like the way he plays. He's an ethical runner, I guess is the best way to put it. If you talk about basketball, people call people ethical hoopers if they have like an old school play style. And I think DJ Giddens is very, very much an ethical runner. So fun player. Probably have him a little bit higher than most, but I think there's a real world where he can be one of the 15 at least best running backs in the league if everything goes the way I think it will with his development. Moving on down to my RB8, we have Byshal Tootin out of Virginia Tech, and man, is this guy an explosive player. 4.32 speed, shows up on tape, and he gets up to that speed quickly. He has good burst behind the line. Like, he is just explosive in every sense of the word. And on top of that, despite being 206 pounds, he's got some power. He's not gonna run through anybody like some of the backs that we'll talk about here soon will, but he's got a little bit of pop behind his pads. He's strong. He can push the pile. He's got really good leg drive. His contact balance is really impressive. With that low center of gravity, he is able to bounce off of tacklers. Pretty shifty in open space as well. Can make guys miss. He's really good at like varying the tempo of his strides to kind of like, gear down and then gear back up to make defenders miss or to manipulate defenders and the angles they're taking. He's really, really fun once he hits that open field. But also, like, he has legit vision. It's not bad. Or let me rephrase that. It's not perfect, but it certainly isn't bad either. It's very, very solid. There are going to be times where he'll miss a lane or, he'll bounce something outside prematurely. But as a whole, I mean, if he stays where he's at now, I think he's got a good, baseline. But if he can continue to improve, get a little more consistent with his vision, then man, the combination of speed and balance and vision could be lethal. This is somebody that could be like a legit RB1. maybe more of like a head of committee type guy as opposed to a true feature back. But right now, I think he projects best as an RB2. Take a look at some of the limitations. The ball security is an issue, especially, both seasons at Virginia Tech, it was a legitimate issue. Also, his lateral quickness, it's NFL average, I would say. Doesn't get in the way of anything, but it's also not like he's going to jump lanes on a dime or anything like that. Also, in pass pro, his size is going to get in his way. And the other big thing to take a look at is the knee injury his senior year. Now, obviously, I am not in NFL front offices. I don't get to go to the combine or anything like that. So I don't know what the medicals are looking like for Tootin. But his senior year, he did hurt his knee, did, have an impact on him throughout the year, later in the year. But, if that becomes like a nagging thing, that is a major concern. That's not something I'm taking into really account here with his positioning or anything like that. It's just something that I would be remiss if I did not mention. Also, in that same vein, being this small and playing like a physical runner is something that scares me, because it could get him into trouble. He just doesn't have the frame to withstand hit after hit after hit after hit, You'd kind of like to see him lean more into that athletic ability. And it's not like he doesn't. It's just, I'd like to see a little bit more. And, as a pass blocker, like I said, he's not great because of the size, but the willingness is there. He's got good hands out of the backfield. He has shown a little bit as a route runner. Makes guys miss in open space. Like Tootin, he is a great, like RB2 type of guy. And like I said, if he can improve a little bit more, maybe there is a world where he can become a feature back. A head of committee. Not quite a feature back. Just like that next step down. Reminds me a good bit of J.K. Dobbins. Now, obviously, Dobbins is, I think, about 8 or 9 pounds heavier. And isn't quite as fast. So you can kind of chalk that up to like, okay, if Tootin put on the extra, we'll just say 10, round up 10 pounds, to kind of align himself more with Dobbins, then he'd probably drop down a little bit in terms of explosiveness. But I mean, if you guys remember J.K. Dobbins coming out, he was supposed to be the next big thing. And while that didn't quite happen, Dobbins is a very respectable running back when healthy. Obviously, I am not projecting that Tootin is going to have the same injury issues, but in terms of their profile, just being an explosive back with good vision, I really, really do think Tootin can be like kind of a better version of what we saw out of J.K. At his peak, he could be a better version of what we saw out of J.K. Dobbins last year before he got hurt. If he doesn't quite hit that peak, the middle ground is just kind of like J.K. Dobbins when healthy, which is a very, very solid, reliable back, has a little bit more juice. I like Tootin a lot, and I think some team will be very, very happy to draft him on day 2. I do think he will actually go day 2, especially with that 40 time. If he starts to slip, then that might, kind of speak to the knee injury, but either way, he is going to be a very fun player to watch at the next level with that speed and the vision and just the burst in general. Moving on now to my RB7, we have Devin Neal out of Kansas. And the big appeal with Neal is his consistency. I mean, you know exactly what you are getting if you take Devin Neal. And that is a very solid, reliable RB2 who you can pluck out of college, drop into your offense, and sleep soundly knowing that he is not going to do anything other than pick you up a minimum of 4 yards on every play. Now, I do have him listed as an RB2 with upside because I think there are a couple places where, he could improve, and maybe that would be enough to make him a true featured back in the NFL, primarily in the receiving game. If he could get a little bit more consistent, hit the jugs machine, maybe hit the weight room a little bit, build up some strength to help out with that pass blocking, he could become a legitimate, I was mentioning DJ Giddens earlier as like a jack of all trades, master of none kind of featured back, excuse me. But taking a look at Neal as it stands, the biggest thing with him is his vision. He has some of the best, if not the best, open field vision in the class. Once he hits that second level, he is so good at waiting for, his downfield blockers to develop and taking angles to make sure that, say he's pulling a safety into a tight end or a linebacker into a fullback. He's really good at doing that kind of stuff. I say pulling a linebacker into a fullback. He didn't run behind one very much, but a man can dream about what he'll run behind at the NFL level. But regardless, he has just fantastic vision. He also doesn't put the ball on the ground very often. I have it written down here. He had a whopping 4 fumbles across 4 seasons on 760 carries. That is pretty damn good. On top of that, he just, like I said, he has that great feel in open space. He's really good at setting up his blockers behind the line of scrimmage as well. He has good vision behind the line. And once those blockers set up, he's really good at hitting that hole quickly. He has good burst. His acceleration isn't quite as good, kind of pairing those two things together, because he is going to take a couple extra steps to get up to that top speed. And that top speed isn't super impressive to begin with. Like I said, that initial burst is going to be good, but as he kind of builds up his speed, he doesn't get a whole lot faster. He kind of maxes out pretty quickly. And that's good for the short area, picking up 4, 5, maybe 6 yards. But when you're out in open space, you want to hit a home run, he's not exactly someone you can rely on consistently for that. He's also not somebody who can really cut on a dime. His footwork behind the line of scrimmage is good, and it gets him where he needs to, but he's just not going to make guys miss back there. He's also not going to make guys miss in the open field, really, which, not the most athletic guy in the world is basically what I'm trying to say. I was also a little bit underwhelmed by his power. He is strong, right? Don't get me wrong. 5'11", 213 pounds. He can put that weight behind his pads and get after it. But I don't know, just looking at his profile, looking at the way he holds himself on the field, you'd expect a little bit more. Like, he can run through dudes, but it feels like it's almost more of an effort thing as opposed to like pure raw strength. Still strong, just not gonna blow you away. Same thing with his power profile. I'd like to see him kind of put his shoulder down and run through dudes a little bit more often. Right now, he's just kind of blowing through arm tackles, keeping his feet churning, pushing the pile kind of guy, which is great. That works great, and there is a role for that in the NFL. I'd just like to maybe see a little bit more. His contact balance also, while fine, is not great because he does have a higher center of gravity, it seems. So he will fall forward and pick up extra yards once he makes contact, but he's not exactly going to regain his footing and get back up to speed, which, there's their own pros with falling forward for yards, which he does very consistently. And as a pass catcher, like I said, there's a floor there, a solid floor. He's got better hands than, most bigger backs. Not fantastic, just because of the volume. He wasn't asked to catch the ball a whole lot, but when he was, they seemed fine. I have it as a C just because I don't want to blow it out of proportions with a high sample or with a low sample size, because who knows, maybe it's just low sample size. He was fine. But, as he gets more targets, maybe he'd have more drops, that kind of thing. Route running, same deal. Pass blocking, the kind of underwhelming strength hurts him as a pass blocker as well. But as a whole, he's just going to be a consistent back. Like I said, reminds me a lot of Tyler Algier, who, Bijan's rookie year especially was the bane of a lot of the fantasy football world's existence, because he would steal goal line carries and, just steal carries in general. He was kind of like an innings eater, I think is the term that some people like to use. And I see that for Devin Neal. Going to be very consistent, going to be very solid, going to get you a lot of points on the goal line, but probably not somebody, at least right away, that is going to be a true number one back anywhere. And like I said, that's more than all right. Taking that in the second round, plucking him out of college, dropping him in your offense, knowing exactly what you have, I think that would be a damn good pickup for a lot of teams across the league. Moving up to my RB6, we have Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. And ironically, or fittingly, however you want to put it, a lot of my critiques and the things I like about Judkins clash perfectly with his teammate TreVeyon Henderson. Where we were talking about TreVeyon Henderson, my biggest complaint with him was his vision. Judkins has fantastic vision, especially between the tackles behind the line of scrimmage. His vision is really, really good. The only critique I have with it, which we'll talk about in a second, ironically, aligns with Travion Henderson. But when he's lined up behind the line of scrimmage, he is really good at locating lanes, setting up blocks, waiting for things to develop. He's very patient, and he's going to be in a very, very good spot when it comes to reading gaps at the NFL level and things like that. But the big problem I have with his vision, which is why it's an A minus and not like an A or even an A plus, is because of his hesitance to bounce runs outside. Which, ironically, the biggest issue with Travion Henderson is how often he bounced runs outside. Judkins would rather sit and wait for a block that's never going to develop than actually bounce a run outside. And it's kind of funny how willing he is to go down with the ship, so to speak. He will sit back there and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and nothing will develop where there is a clean lane either to the left or to the right to bounce the run outside, and he just won't take it. Whereas you put Travion Henderson on the field, he's not even bothering waiting for whatever's developing. He's running that outside, whether there's 5 linebackers there or, nothing. Whereas Judkins, like I said, he's the opposite. It's kind of funny, honestly, how opposite they are in that way. Also, with Judkins, he's not quite as athletic as Henderson. His speed is good, but he doesn't have that, second gear. He kind of maxes out pretty quickly. It doesn't take him long to get up to that top speed, and that top speed is pretty good, but he's not somebody that's going to consistently pull away from defenses. He has home run potential, but, a couple things have to go right. He has to hit a good hole for that to end up happening. On top of that, whereas Henderson was a pretty good pass blocker, Judkins just isn't. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he has a really slender lower half, which does work to his advantage when he's running between the tackles because he can get skinny and fit in tight creases. But, as a pass blocker, and even when it comes to his contact balance and his overall power profile, that does hold him back a little bit. Despite being 6 foot 220, like I said, his contact balance, his strength, and his power profile are a little underwhelming. I do think he's strong, so I think his strength is good. But in terms of his overall power profile, he will get behind his pads, run a dude over. He has a good stiff arm. It's just that lower half really does limit him, and it's also why, with his contact balance, he has a higher center of gravity, so it's a lot easier to trip him up. He's not going to be able to recover as well. He's going to stumble and fall if he gets tripped up. So definitely not ideal, but something that he can work around, or, he works around, I should say. He's good at setting himself up so he doesn't have to worry about that contact, and also he falls forward for extra yards. So that definitely makes up for it. Good burst. Like I said, when he's in the backfield, he does hit those holes pretty quickly. Not the shiftiest guy in the world. Once he's in open space, he does struggle a little bit to wiggle. He's got some stiff hips. But when he's in the open field, that doesn't matter because he makes up for that lack of wiggle with his open field vision. He's good at watching things set up, taking good angles, things of that nature. His agility, his lateral agility in the backfield is also pretty good. So just an overall player that you can rely on to find a hole and hit it. Sometimes he won't find that hole and still try to hit it as opposed to bouncing it outside, which I'd like to see improved. But a good football player nonetheless. Definitely like him a lot more than his teammate. Also, there's some pass receiving upside, some pass catching upside, as opposed to pass blocking upside. He showed off some decent hands and some decent route running his junior year. So, 21, still young, develop a little bit. There's a little more tread on the tires than you'd like to see because of how much of a workhorse he was at Ole Miss. But still a good football player and easily worth a look on day 2. And I think should be comfortably getting a lot more hype than his teammate. Moving on now into the top 5, we have Caleb Johnson. And this is the first guy that I think can be a number 1 running back, no committee needed day 1, right? Some of the other guys, I think there's potential for it. A guy like Quinshon Judkins, I didn't mention this during his little blurb, but I do think he can be the head of a committee. Whereas Caleb Johnson, I think he can just be a number 1. With his speed, his frame, his strength, and his vision, I think there's a lot to like. Now, what does hold him back is going to be some of his other athletic tools. He really struggles to hit his top speed quickly. His acceleration is not great. It'll take him sometimes 3, 4, maybe even 5 extra steps to hit that. He also isn't somebody that has a lot of shiftiness. He can wiggle a tiny bit, but that's not something you want to rely on. Same thing with his ability to cut on a dime. Like, he's not, somebody who can change directions and maintain full speed. He's going to lose a little bit of the speed he's built up. Now, he does have solid lateral agility in the backfield. He can, what's the word I'm looking for here? He can switch lanes and things of that nature, like at an NFL average level, but he can do it. That's what matters at the end of the day. And his speed is great. I know he ran like a 4.57. Throw that out the window. Doesn't matter. His game speed is so much faster. He explodes once he hits that top speed. He has like legitimate home run speed. And when you pair that with a guy who's 6'1", 224 pounds, runs hard behind his pads, he has great strength, a great power profile, and really good vision, that's exciting to me. Taking a look at some of the other things, though, here on his profile, his contact balance is good, but honestly a little underwhelming for a guy of his size. There are moments where he is going to be tripped up and not be able to recover. Not super prevalent, it's not a huge deal, but it is noticeable. Also, his receiving profile is lacking. He's not a good pass blocker. His technique is all over the place. He has the strength and he has the willingness, so some development can be done there. His hands, honestly, just weren't used very much out of the backfield, and he wasn't asked to really run routes. So he's kind of a projection as a receiver, but he is only 21. So, you have some time to kind of build that up with him. Overall, he's just like a freight train of a football player. Right? He's somebody that when he gets a full head of steam, watch the fuck out. His speed, his strength, and his vision are all like really, really high quality traits. But yeah, just as a whole, awesome football player. Not a lot to say because I feel like it's pretty straightforward. He's somebody that will be very, very exciting to watch at the next level, especially if he gets into a zone scheme where he has a couple extra seconds to build up that top speed while things develop. Watch out if that's the case. Moving on to our number 4 back, we have maybe my favorite running back in the class. Again, not the best because he's at number 4, but my favorite in Damian Martinez out of Miami. This dude is so much fun. Like, I know a running back that isn't super fast and relies heavily on power and vision and balance probably isn't everyone's idea of fun, but man, it's mine. One of my favorite running backs I've watched, in my lifetime play for my favorite team, David Montgomery, reminds me a lot of him. We'll get into that comp here in a minute. But Martinez is incredible, and the big thing that stands out with him is the vision. In my opinion, he has the best vision in this class. It is, pun intended, in a class of its own. He is so good when it comes to, not only being patient and waiting for gaps to develop, but he really thrives when it comes to letting blocks or setting up blockers. He's really good at taking that extra, phantom step to pull a linebacker down and let the center move up to pick him up, or, setting up a safety over top of a guard or something like that. That's where he does his best work, and that kind of stuff gets me excited. He's very much like Bijan Robinson in that way. Obviously, that's not my own conclusion I came to. I saw the Theo Ash videos. I'm sure plenty of you did as well on TikTok. He brought it up. He talked about it. I don't think Bijan and Martinez are similar players. I don't think they have similar play styles or anything, but their vision is very similar. The way they're able to set up blockers and stuff is very similar. And then you also have, just this incredible strength and power profile. He bowls over dudes. His leg drive's incredible. He's a really good stiff arm. He's somebody that every time he lowers his shoulder, I really think like he is throwing up Hail Marys like, "Forgive me, Father, for they know not what they do," as they step in front of him and get laid the fuck out. That kind of thing. Like, he is so fun to watch when he's taking on contact. Additionally, he's got a really low center of gravity that gives him really good contact balance. And that, along with the strength of the leg drive, make him a menace on the goal line. He also has really good footwork for a bigger running back, 217 pounds. His lateral agility specifically is really nice. He's really good at switching lanes. He's also pretty quick when it comes to hitting that hole, his burst, and then also his acceleration once he gets out in the open field, hitting his top speed. He is a lot more athletic than you would expect. He has a little bit of wiggle, not the wiggliest guy in the room per se, but he definitely has a little bit of wiggle. Also only had one fumble in college across 3 seasons, which is pretty impressive. So really good ball security there. And his home run speed, like, it is legit. He can break off big runs. Now, he's not a burner. He ran a 4.51. I don't think, much like Caleb Johnson, that does his tape justice. But, he can break big runs. He can bust off home run runs. Not the most athletic guy in the world, but definitely more athletic than you'd expect. In terms of weaknesses, he's not an elite athlete, like I said. He does run a little high. I'd like to see him get behind those pads a little bit more, which is why the strength and power profile isn't an A+, because, he just doesn't maximize it, right? It's there. He just doesn't use it well enough to justify an A+ because of his high pad level. And then as a receiver, he hasn't really shown anything. He's definitely capable on like checkdowns, but, his route tree was very limited. Didn't see a lot of production at Miami. And then also in pass pro, I'd like to see him improve. He's got the will, he's got the strength, just needs to hone in on that technique. He has some pretty nice pass blocking highlights where he just lays dudes out. But taking a look at that comp, right? David Montgomery. I know that doesn't seem super flashy, super sexy, super exciting, but Monty's a dog, dude. Like, he just gets shit done. His vision and patience are really, really good, much like Martinez. Now, I do think Martinez is stronger than Montgomery, which kind of separates him a little bit. But the bigger reason why I have this is because if Martinez isn't like an RB1 somewhere, if he isn't the guy, I absolutely see a world where he is like David Montgomery, where he is technically the second fiddle, like Montgomery is to Gibbs, but he's like the engine of the offense. Everything runs through him. His purpose, get tough yards, set up the big play back by wearing down the defense, being a check down option on third down, staying into pass block. Again, he needs a little bit of work there, but I do think that is very doable. I just love Damian Martinez. I don't see a world where he fails. I don't see a world where he isn't at least arguably the best goal line back in football and a really good short yardage back. He just has it, dude. He is so fun. He is so strong. He has such great vision. He's just everything I love in a running back. In short, like I said, he's not the most athletic guy in the world, but I'll be damned if he doesn't have some juice. So Martinez, he's just all around great. Really safe pick, in my opinion. Easily worth a look early on day 2. Just a player I absolutely adore. Like I said, maybe my favorite running back in the class. Definitely my biggest my guy at the position. And honestly, is someone that I have struggled fighting back and forth with and not putting him in my top 3. But once we see who my top 3 is, I think you all will understand why I had to unfortunately drop him to number 4. Getting into the top 3 now, we've got the man himself, Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State, a legitimate Heisman candidate last year. Obviously, that didn't mean a whole lot considering Ashton Genty and the winner, Travis Hunter, both existed and both ran away with the vote. But there's a reason why Skattebo's name was at least in the conversation, and it's because he is a tremendous running back. The biggest thing about him is definitely something that isn't going to show up on the stat sheet or even my traits here, and that is his demeanor. This guy does not give a fuck about the safety of anyone on the football field. He just cares about taking the football and moving it forward. If that means he has to die, if that means one of his linemen has to die, especially if that means one of the defenders has to die, then so be it. He will do what he needs to do to push the ball downfield. And he's so fun to watch, man. I mean, he is so good. He just does not care about anyone's well-being, like I said. And you pair that with this incredible strength and power profile. He is somebody that just runs through defenders. He'll lower his shoulder. He's got that old school, I'm a fullback guy, so obviously I'm going to go to Mike Allstott vibe to him. Obviously Allstott was quite a bit bigger, but Skattebo's he's like a little mini Allstott in that way. Not a good comp for him. I don't think they play similarly, but that power and their mentality towards the game, there's certainly comparisons that can be drawn there. And on top of that, his vision is exceptional. Not quite perfect vision. There are some moments where you'd like to see him maybe bounce it outside a little bit more, and maybe that's more akin to him not trusting his athletic tools. That's neither here nor there. The point is, he sees the field very well, and he does something with his vision better than anyone else in this class, and that is weaponizing guys who are pulling across the line. He will do his best to get up behind a guard that's pulling and kind of ride him until he makes contact and then spring off of that, almost using him like a battering ram in some way. Because of that, I would love to see him in an offense that deploys a fullback, just because I feel like Scattaboo, every chance he got, would just grab onto his back and push him forward. Use that fullback as a battering ram. Just make the most of it. I think that would be really fun. But my fantasies aside, Scattaboo is awesome when it comes to the vision and the strength and also the contact balance. I mean, this dude does not go down. The way he plays with how light he is on his feet, his low center of gravity, and his strength and just overall build, his contact balance is incredible. I would say second only to the guy that's going to be at number 1 on this list. We all know who that is. But the reason I say that is because of how hard it is to bring him down. And not only is it hard to bring him down, but it's hard to bring him down as the game goes on. Because the first time, it's going to hurt. The second time, it's going to hurt. By the 5th, 6th, maybe 7th time, you're like, okay, this is getting old. By the 15th, 16th time, you're gasping for air. By the 20th to 25th time, you're like a corpse on the ground crying, thinking about bringing this dude down. Obviously, I'd never try to do it myself, but I can only imagine the headache it would take, or the headache it would cause, rather, to bring this guy down, 20, 25 times in a game. Goodness, so excited. I'm stumbling over my words here. But, to go along with that contact balance, I mentioned the footwork. He is a lot lighter on his feet than you would expect from someone with his build, especially behind the line of scrimmage when it comes to switching lanes and just staying kind of like floaty. He's really, really good at that. He's also got a little bit of wiggle, not a whole lot, but he can make a guy miss if he needs to, plant that foot and cut. And the big thing, too, that separates him from like a traditional power back is the pass catching. He is probably the second best receiving back in this class, second to Rashard Smith, who obviously was a wide receiver. So it's a little bit unfair to compare the two. But I mean, Scattaboo, his route running is fantastic. He can cut on a dime as a route runner. Don't think he's going to be running a lot of wheel routes or anything like that just because of the speed limitations. And then his hands, they're natural. He can pluck the ball away from his frame. He doesn't drop the football as a receiver. He's great. He's great in the receiving game. Obviously, I already mentioned the speed is a little bit underwhelming, and by a little bit underwhelming, I mean not very good. He's not a burner. He doesn't really have that home run speed, but he doesn't need to with the way he plays. If you're drafting Cam Scattaboo thinking, all right, this is Jahmyr Gibbs, this is Saquon Barkley, you got to fire your scouts because they told you the wrong profile. That is not what this guy is. Same thing with his ability to like change directions and stuff in open field. He will lose his little bit of speed when he tries to do so. Ball security is also an issue, just because he seems so focused on killing guys that sometimes he'll forget, you're about to run somebody over, a second guy will fly in from the side, punch that ball out. He needs to beware of that. Then also as a pass blocker, again, his technique falls to the wayside because he is so concerned with wanting to hit guys as hard as possible. So I'd like to see him kind of reel that back just a tick as a pass blocker to fully maximize his abilities. But regardless, Scattaboo is awesome. I have him listed as a head of committee. On my board, it's a lot longer. It's like head of committee / high-end complimentary RB2 / potential feature back. Like, it's hard to place a guy with the speed deficiencies that he has in terms of their role. But I do think, like, at the very least, he's going to be an awesome running back too for somebody. But I do think he can take over and be the top dog. Much like his comp, which is James Conner. I think that comp is really good. James Conner rocks. Really good strength, vision, contact balance. Really, really good as a receiver out of the backfield. So I think, that's a pretty good comp there. And, I'm sure there are a lot of teams out there that would love to have James Conner. So Scattaboo adding some power to that James Conner profile, I think is a very, can't miss prospect, very safe. Obviously, he's 23, a little bit undersized, but I don't care. I don't care how old you are. If you run like this dude does, you're one of the 3 best backs in a class, point blank, period.
Moving on now to our RB2, we've got a Marion Hampton out of North Carolina, one of 2 running backs in this class that I'm giving a true first-round grade to. In fact, as it stands, Hampton is one of the 10 best players in the class, according to my big board, just based off of my evaluations. I think he is easily one of the 10 best players in this class. Just an awesome, awesome all-around running back. He's got the perfect frame, 6 foot 220, exactly what you want to see from like a true number one feature back. He has good enough athletic tools. I mean, he's not like a burner. He's not Byshell Tootin or anything like that. But he does have some solid speed, and he can pull away from the defense. He has that home run speed. He gets up to his top speed pretty quickly. He can cut pretty quickly. His lateral agility in the backfield is really nice. He switches lanes quickly and decisively. I know I keep saying quick. I promise he's not one of those guys that's quicker than he is fast. He does have some legitimate speed. Ran a 4.46 at the combine for reference, and I think that's about where he falls, if not maybe a little bit faster. But regardless, he has the athletic tools you want. He also has the strength. The strength is big with Hampton. He gets behind his pads. He runs hard. Much like Cam Scattaboo, he has that kind of like killer demeanor, and he has even more weight and even bigger frame to put behind it. Now, I will say, I think Scattaboo is a little bit more of a killer, but Hampton is not far off. He has a nasty demeanor, great stiff arm too, which puts his power profile up to an A+, because he can run through a dude, he can push you in the dirt. I mean, he is a tough SOB. His contact balance also rocks. He's another guy that's going to be a chore to bring down. Keeps his feet running. He has, very light on his feet for a running back. And those two things, along with his overall strength and just lower center of gravity, make him a pain in the ass. I would assume, again, I'm not going to try to do it myself, but I would assume it would make him a pain in the ass to bring down. His vision's also really good. He sees the field very, very well. He's another guy that is good at letting his blockers develop, kind of manipulating guys at the second level to fall into his blocker's trap, for lack of a better expression. Excuse me. Just really, really good at that. And also his vision in the open field is great as well. Also doesn't fumble the ball. Ball security is really good. I mean, he really has it all. A little bit of wiggle, too. I skipped over his shiftiness. He's got a little bit of wiggle. Not somebody that you're going to mistake as like a Jahmyr Gibbs or anything like that, but he can make a dude miss for sure. Just awesome all around. Also in the passing game, kind of moving off of the other traits we were talking about, he is a fine enough receiver, right? He has good hands. He can run some decent routes. He's not Scattaboo, he's not Brashard Smith, but he gets the job done, and that's what matters. In fact, I would say he has a better pass-catching profile and better pass-catching upside than the guy who's going to be at number one, if that means anything to you. But as a whole, I think Hampton is damn close to the number one guy. In fact, I would say the gap between those two is smaller than the gap between Hampton and Scattaboo. Like, in terms of recent draft classes, I think, if I remember correctly, Hampton would be my third highest graded running back since I started doing this, which was 4 years ago. So just behind Genty, who obviously my number one, spoiler alert, but behind Genty and Bijan Robinson, Hampton would be my next guy. Just absolutely incredible all around. I think he is easily worth a first round pick. As a Bears fan, if we end up missing out on Genty because of the Raiders or some other team, I would love for Hampton to be in consideration at 10. He just has it all. And a couple other things that just like aren't listed in his traits, but I think are really fascinating. Or just positives to the way he plays, I guess is a better way to put it. He's one of those guys that's really good at getting skinny and shooting through tight spaces. That burst is an A for a reason. He can reduce his surface area and fit through tight gaps. But what really stands out to me is the way he utilizes his strides, because Hampton is someone that's really good at switching up his stride length. In the backfield, he keeps these short, choppy steps to kind of, be ready at a moment's notice to take off. And then once he gets into the open field, he's a long strider. He takes these long strides, covers a bunch of ground with every step. He's very much like Joe Mixon in that way. That's a popular comp for him because those are two running backs who know how to use that, not only know how to use it, but know how to weaponize it to their advantage. But for my comp, I went with Ezekiel Elliott. The reason I say that is because I think if you put the two of them side by side, you watch the way they run, the way they carry themselves, it's almost identical. Like Hampton's gait is so similar to Ezekiel Elliott's. They uh they hold themselves the same way, they carry themselves the same way. They have very similar strengths. Zeke was probably a little bit more explosive, but just all in all, both really high quality running back prospects. Zeke was probably a little bit better of a prospect, but I think Hampton can easily become, what like rookie year Zeke was. I should say, there are a couple weaknesses to his game. He does need to work on his pass blocking. I think his technique there is lacking at the moment. He's more of a killer than a true, like, sit back and do his job pass blocker. He's also a little reckless, and I know that's a good thing, but he's reckless in almost a boneheaded way sometimes that it's just like, what are you doing, dude? Most notably, he will try some really wacky hurdles that just aren't going to work, but he says, you know what, I'm better. And he tries them anyways, and they don't always work out in his favor. So that's something to keep in mind. He doesn't fumble the ball in those situations, but you do worry about like the way he's going to land, potentially impacting his health. And on top of that, he could be better as a route runner. He isn't the shiftiest guy in the world. He can make guys miss, but again, I said he's not Jahmyr Gibbs for a reason. And his athletic tools, while good, are not quite elite. He doesn't have like a true second gear, but that top speed he gets to is enough to pull away. So I love Hampton. I think he's a true like franchise RB1 feature back type of guy, and he is going to be a difference maker for some offense in the NFL. And finally, of course, my number one back in the class is Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. And I'm going to try to keep this relatively brief because what can be said about Jeanty that hasn't already been said? Right? This dude has it all. There's a reason he was a Heisman candidate, over 2,000 rushing yards his senior year, came just shy of Barry Sanders' record. I mean, he is unreal. He has good athletic tools. I think his speed is a little bit underrated. He's not like Tootin, obviously, or even like a Brashard Smith, but I think he has a good bit of speed. I've seen that listed as a weakness for him, and I disagree. I don't think it's exactly a weakness. He has like that second gear. He can pull away. He's great in that regard. He gets up to his top speed quickly. He has good burst behind the line of scrimmage to fire on through. His ability to cut on a dime is great. He doesn't lose any speed. His lateral agility behind the line is very, very good. He can, perform jump cuts and switch lanes and make guys miss in the backfield. He's one of, if not the strongest player in this class. He's built like a, I mentioned a bowling ball earlier for Kyle Monungai. If he's a bowling ball, Ashton Jeanty is a bowling ball made out of fucking adamantium. Like, he is different in terms of his build. 5'8.5", 211 pounds, just a little freak of nature. And I can say little. He's actually shorter than me. I was about to say maybe I can't call him little. He's just a little bit shorter than me. But regardless, great power profile. He's got a little bit of wiggle, not kind of like Marion Hampton. He's not the wiggliest, but he's got a little bit of wiggle. Contact balance, easily the best in the class. Really good leg drive, low center of gravity, really good pad level. Gets himself behind his pads pretty consistently. Blasts through arm tackles. His vision's great. He lets his block set up. He does all that stuff we've been talking about. His open field vision's really good. He consistently is going to fall forward for extra yards. He's a decent enough route runner and has decent hands. Not going to blow you away with either one, but hey, he gets the job done. He's really light on his feet. He's what's it called? High character guy. People praise him for that a lot. Obviously, I can't attest to it because I've never met him, but, sources say, as they say. The only thing that I really can complain about, the ball security. He had 8 lost fumbles across his final 2 years. Not great. Certainly not ideal, but I think that's something he can clean up. And the pass blocking, it's just not there. The technique is not there at all. But if the worst thing about a running back's profile is his pass blocking, I think you're doing all right. You also have to worry about tread on his tires. 374 carries last year. That's certainly not ideal, but I don't care, man. Jeanty is going to change an offense. Obviously, the dream is him at 10 for Chicago. Probably going to go to the Raiders and be a super big piece of their offense. This is like one of those once every couple years generational talents. He's up there with Bijan Robinson, with Saquon Barkley in my lifetime, since I've really been following the NFL. Those are the only two guys that I say, are on par with him as a prospect. I know I said Omarion Hampton isn't far off, and he's not, but I still think Genty is a little bit different. He's just different. Reminds me a lot of Maurice Jones-Drew, was an incredible running back who also just ran through dudes, didn't go down, had some nice explosiveness. I know that's pretty popular comp. They're built very similarly. I mean, he's incredible. Like I said, whatever I can say about him has been said a billion times over. I've got my gushing out, so I love Genty. I hope he's a Chicago Bear. And if he's not, he's still going to be one of my favorite running backs in the league day one, because he is incredible. But anyways, folks, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts were on any of the 12 running backs we talked about today, or let me know what your thoughts are on my overall running back rankings, which is what you're seeing on your screen now. I watched 25. I don't know if I'll end up watching any more. If I do, I'll add like a YouTube short or something in the description that you can go watch, and I'll talk about the other 5, or at least say if anything changes in my top 10. But at the very least, these are the 25 I watched. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did I have anybody too high, too low? Is there anyone that I should have watched that I didn't? Anything like that. Also, make sure to subscribe for more draft content over the next 2-3 weeks. Just over 2 weeks now. Goodness, we are in the home stretch, and I have a lot of work to do. So if you want to see more content with the draft, make sure to subscribe. And also make sure to like, so I know that you guys are interested, because it does help out the channel a ton. It shows your support, it shows you care, and I really do appreciate it. And to everyone out there watching, I hope you all are having a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it, because you're all wonderful people and you truly do deserve it.
Had a chance on the throwback. This was an ill-advised throw. What an unbelievable catch by Cole Kmet. And he cups it too. No movement when he hits the ground, tucked up against his shoulder. Wow.
Using that